The world needs now is Nurkish and Cecil to get back to. Someone's listening to this from outside the network, and they're like, "Who the hell are these people?" They're like, "I don't know, Abbott Costello." We need them to get together and analyze modern TV and do a show together. Honestly, I think it could be probably just massive, massive hit because they're really good together. And two, the material is inexhaustible. Cringe is overused. No, no, it's not. It's not used often enough. Anyway, so this is really hard to get through without just a bunch of four-letter words. I'm glad that YouTube does not allow that anymore, and it's not really descriptive. You just say this stuff is R slur. So Disney tells employees to learn how to code and hires artificial intelligence, and I don't think anyone will notice the difference. It might even improve. And before you roll your eyes at that, you think, oh, what a just a stupid YouTube statement. Go watch some modern TV and get back to me. I watched TV, and the question I have is, has it always been this bad? Holy cow, America is developmentally disabled. Yes, absolutely, artificial intelligence could write the shows I saw. My mammogram and my prolapsed vagina and having babies at 40, I kid you not. So Hollywood is on strike, and nobody cares because Hollywood's a bunch of cliche-ridden commie parasites who really hate the audience. Like, that just happened. Wow. Just wow. That was a thing. Right. I know. Right. Uh, no wonder reality shows are taking off because even they're minimally scripted, but at least you're seeing something with a little bit of life to it. They say they don't want to be replaced by AI and they want residuals on shows. That's what a lot of this striking stuff is all about. They want residuals on shows that have low watch time. As I just learned, I thought I presume TV was bad. I didn't realize the shows are not getting watch time because people can barely sit through. You know what I think is going on? Background TV. But like I'll leave YouTube on it in the background, and it'll just go from show to show to show. I'm not watching, I'm not paying attention to it, but the metrics register that as watch time. And I know a lot of people do that. I think that's what's going on with a lot of these shows because there's no way you could watch a bunch of this stuff. There's no way you'd have to be in a mental institution. The stuff's horrible. Like I watched a few episodes and it actually depressed me with how bad it is because I know it says something about the audience and unfortunately something about the country if this show is these shows are being watched by a large group of people. That means something is very, very wrong with people. Now I understand how far the American IQ has dropped. And it's usually left wingers who say that about right wingers. Oh, the people in the South, they're so dumb, aren't they? But these shows are all for left wing soy boy types, or cat ladies or soccer moms who thinks this stuff is so edgy. The right wing doesn't want to hear about 40-year-old women talk about their vaginas. I kid you not, that was in like literally the first show I put on. Oh look, I have one of those too. It's a relatable experience. Gosh, the Uber Eats driver sure is wacky. They did something clever. Oh, I've got a smartphone app that times my ovulation so a 43-year-old woman can get pregnant. What the F is even going on in Hollywood with this stuff? Every other line, you would think the writers are striking now and that these shows were written by amateurs, but this was before they went on strike. Every other line is a topical reference as if the 50-year-old writer was in a coma for 10 years and suddenly awoke and had to talk about Trump, interracial relationships, and endless masturbation. Oh, and the pseudo political incorrectness. That's actually stomach turning, where the characters are bringing attention to things because it's current year. There was a line in one of the shows where the guy calls people dicks and then he corrects it to or vaginas, as if they sort of want to be politically correct, but they think the whole thing's silly, but they don't actually think it's silly and they did correct themselves. They kind of like set the joke up and then they suck the wind out of the sail of the joke and it's just kind of sitting there like where it was supposed to go, but the characters didn't pull it off because they don't want to actually be politically incorrect. Not even to make fun of something just as minor as stuff with the gender wars. Like they wouldn't even have the balls or vagina to go there. That's the kind of humor that's in TV now. They don't actually make fun of political correctness. It's not even pseudo edgy. It never even comes close. It's just 40-year-old feminist music major mom humor who thinks she can be funny. That's who is writing these shows. Because if it's on TV, it's going to be politically correct. Gosh, what are the odds? Every single show pushes the party line. Trump, am I right? It's like the guy's been out of office for friggin' years now. There is zero deviation from whatever the current narrative is. That's the line they're sticking to, and they do not leave that. The shows are not about actual real humor or storylines. The only thing the show does is show relatable, and I'm talking about all shows. They show relatable modern moments and the chemistry between the characters, but nothing is funny. That's the only highlight of the shows, is that the actors will have interpersonal chemistry, and that's the reason people, I think, are watching. And I think it's more. I think the new phenomenon, I never thought about this, is I think TV's on in the background and people have their cell phones in front of them. There's no way you're paying attention. You have a tablet, you're reading like social media, and some of these shows are on in the background, and that's how they're getting these huge metrics for watch time. So I watched one for a sample, because I don't watch TV, because I don't have a brain injury. It was Eve 5 Ever. They say it's a popular show. America is completely effed. Holy cow, Hollywood is in deep trouble if this is what they're coming up with. And it's hard just not to use slurs to describe it. Like, it's a step up, as if the Mary Sue wrote it, as if Rachel Leichman and the other idiots tried to come up with something, but they were trying their best not to be super woke and preachy, so they only mentioned their vaginas twice per episode. If a foreigner saw this, they would call America the Great Satan. I would totally understand why. I'd be like, yeah, you're absolutely right. Please nuke Hollywood and New York while you're at it. I look at this and I realize that this is the future of Hollywood. Super low budget shows, very minimal editing. They're like a few steps up from a reality show. And if you honestly got through 4 episodes of this show, for example, you need Jesus to save your soul, because you're broken inside. And you know how you can analyze the IQ of someone from a long enough... these comments are effing golden. You can analyze the IQ of someone from a long enough writing sample. That's what the show is an example of. You could break down the complexity of the jokes, the multiple layers, the weaving together of story structure, and I think this show would come up in the audience is slow but trainable range, and I really want to use other language, but if you like it, or shows like it, or TV or streaming shows, you're probably an alcoholic and you need the 12 steps. If this show is indicative of TV, then the audience must have been brainwashed to accept crap, which, now that I think about it, is probably the more likely. Not everyone. There can't be millions of people in America who are this far to the left of the bell curve, or I think it's that they're willing to accept things, and movies too, which are almost as bad. Higher budget movies, they're looking to return that investment, where like $1 million series is not the quite financial pressure. But what happens is, over the years, they just keep dumbing down movies and shows and effing everything, including like women's talk show, like daytime talk show, morning talk show type of stuff. I would love to see a professor of like the English language hear me like, you're an idiot. Analyze a show today, and then a talk show from the early 90s, and tell me how the syntax and the complexity differed. Because I guarantee you go, yeah, the average IQ now of these talk shows is somewhere in the 80 range. And before, it was, maybe over 100, or right in the middle of the bell curve. And you think about this, this isn't just not an off-the-cuff remark. Think about what I'm saying. Tell me I'm wrong about this. I also want to say, if you watch TV or streaming shows, please tell me in the comments what you watch that you think is good. And I don't mean just a background show. I mean what you watch and pay attention to. I want to go see it, so I can tell you why you're wrong, because you're almost certainly you're probably wrong. Or maybe you found the one. Are there diamonds in the rough? Yeah, there has to be. But I haven't come across them. So tell me about the diamonds in the rough. Anyway, so what happens is the show, they just make everything slowly worse. The audience just keeps adjusting to it. They don't expect anything better. They just get Stockholm syndrome with Hollywood. And I'm not on a high horse over our generation. Shows were brilliant. I think, honestly, they were a little bit better, But if you go back and watch Friends or Seinfeld and you think that stuff was genius, go online. You can find all this stuff online. You don't have to, you can watch a few episodes. I think you're going to find that, oh, this doesn't really hold up. Why were we watching it back then? It was stupid back then. You watched the show because you were watching with your own friends or your family. There was nothing else on. You were having a drink when you were watching it. It was kind of like an event. We're all, if all you're offered is a hot dog and you think a hot dog with relish, it's like, oh, well, that's gourmet food. It all sucks. It still all sucks. I think everything on TV probably sucks. It sucked for decades. I can go back to the 80s. Maybe with TV you can just keep going back to the 60s and like, yeah, just kind of for a dumb audience, but I think the goal is also to make the audience even dumber. So the other point is that there are a lot of shows on a lot of networks. I mean, thousands, right? I mean, networks, there's dozens of the paid streaming stuff, but TV channels, there's there's hundreds for sure. There might even be thousands of like individual sources of things. Keep in mind, in my area, when I was a kid, there was a half a dozen channels, and I think TV still went off the air at night. You get the busy signal or something. Then cable came, and the channels grew exponentially to the point now, like the joke back then, I think the joke in the 90s was like, all these channels and nothing to watch. And there were a lot of channels, but it was still possible. Like there were only a few hit channels, and it was possible for everyone to be on the same page. Now that is completely changed. People are on absolutely different pages with their pop culture poison. It seems like all of it is the same overall developmentally disabled narrative. Anyway, so as these people are pointing out, yes, everyone hates the writers and actors for sure, but it's not like they're really at fault. I'm sure they're soy boys, but they're doing what their puppet masters told them to do, is just to create this kind of crap. Because you'll do whatever you're paid to do. I mean, they're mostly whores. It's the kind of the Norm Macdonald meme where I hate everyone involved in the story. So what's going on with this strike is the left supports the strike because Hollywood is pushing this left-wing viewpoint, but the overall theme is the younger audience is watching social media and not mainstream media. Oh, let me get darn. Like, what a professional setup you have. They're watching they're not watching, they're watching TikTok and stuff like that. TV and movies do not have the saturation like they used to, and fewer people go to the theaters, so they charge more, and it works out until it collapses, if it does. Someone pointed out that, operas and stage plays used to be much more affordable, and they used to be much more accessible because that was what people watched, before moving pictures, and then the talkies came out. But like, as that kind of went the way, it's like it's still around. It's still around, but it's a premium project thing where you go to a play like once a year, and it's several $100s. They're talking about big screen movies might be in a situation like that. Or you never know. It's like things don't last forever. So one of the issues, and the reason like YouTube live streams, Rumble and Odyssey can compete with Hollywood is because that's how bad Hollywood is. It's like you'd rather listen to Dark Gift Comics just talk with a bunch of friends about pop culture and about BS because it's comfortable to listen to and they're entertaining. You're like, wait a minute. There's a lot of Comicsgate people that are more entertaining than people who are paid $50,000 an episode. It shouldn't be like that, but like that's literally where the situation is right now. So one of the other issues is that the streaming issue, the idea that there's just so many shows and networks that each need a paid subscription for, and you're not going to, that was the joke, is like the days of cable kind of really hit big in the early 90s, and you paid for kind of one package, and it was somewhat reasonable, and you got a lot of stuff with it. And they go, oh, well, now you can just pay for what you want. And then people realize, like, yeah, it's like $15 here, $20 here, $5 here. And it starts adding up. You're like, this is, so you want the sports package? Well, that's $80 a month or something, plus all this other crap. You're like, this is getting absolutely absurd. And then you look at what's being offered, and you go like, I don't need to pay for any of this. I don't need to watch any of this kind of stuff. I'd rather save the money for the big screen presentation, to splurge on popcorn. And then you look at what's being offered, you're like, that looks like that's going to be maybe once a year, twice a year if you're lucky, because there's just not a whole lot of stuff that's coming out there. Oh, anyway, like I said, if you want me to go see a movie and review it, pay for the movie and the popcorn, and I will. Anyway, so there's so much stuff out there that all has to be paid for, but that means unless the subs increase exponentially to match the networks, each individual writer has to be paid less, and that's an impossible amount. Like there's more work out there for everybody. So there's like 100 times the writers that are in demand and 100 times the sets and all this stuff that's in demand. But instead of a Friends episode back in 1990 that would get $1 million an episode, that's just almost impossible these days. So you've got more things that are like the total. So that's like what, 5 main actors, $5 million per episode, plus I don't know, $500,000 to $1 million to for everything else that's added into it. So several $1 million per night. There's just not, that's just not. And that was a high paid show, but like Seinfeld and Friends and Frasier, and there were a ton of shows that were very well paid shows because there was only a half a dozen of them. And now you look at the offerings now, you're like, oh yeah, you're probably lucky to get, paid in the tens of thousands of dollars. And that's just like, yeah, it's a zero sum game in terms of financing. There's only so many subscriptions to go around. Like you're funded by those subscriptions or you're funded by advertising. And when there's 1,000 things to choose from, yeah, you're not going to be able to get the perk. People were in the 90s, people were paid. Even in 2000, 2010, the money was insane. And it's still good, but it's not crazy money like that. It's like, it's getting down to regular money because there's just so much stuff out there. And the thing with Disney and about these other ad execs is people are legitimately pointing out is like, yeah, we can't pay the lower level people the money they want because we got to pay the executives $50 million a year or pay some actor $20 million or $60 million a movie. Robert Downey Jr. got paid $65 million for that last Avenger movie. But the thing is, you look at it as like, well, you don't actually have to pay them that kind of money. You're choosing to pay them because you don't want to pay the writers, which is funny because the left wing says, oh, we're, Hollywood, right? We're so far left wing, except of course they applauded Weinstein for 30 years. A little bit weird there. Oh, well, yeah, I mean, you can't abuse somebody if they're making money for you. That abuse has to be invisible. Oh, is that how it works? Yeah, of course that's how it works. The thing is, they're not exactly volunteering to share their top level pay with the lower levels because it would be pretty easy to do that if you're Bob Iger and you're getting paid $50 million. Yeah, I don't need that kind of money. I'm already worth $500 million. I'd be like, just dial it down to $5 million a year. It's enough to run the company, and just take that $45 million and spread it out. And the actors are like, I don't need $20 million for a pick. Do the same kind of thing. It's like, yeah, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. That's not happening because it could have happened. It would have been so easy to do. And like left wing socialist Hollywood, yeah, well, the buck stops when it comes to spending bucks that you're getting. So the other thing is that the left wing, the Twitter audience, they're very invested in this because they're invested in their shows, the parasocial relationship thing, but they won't just boycott Hollywood. Every once in a while, somebody on Twitter will suggest it, and they put the brakes on that real quick because they need to see, the next season. Oh, I wonder what these comments are going to be about. They need to see the next season or whatever's coming out. They won't give up their bread and circuses because then they'd be alone with their own thoughts, and they absolutely hate that. They form these bizarre parasocial relationships with the characters and the shows, I think because it affirms their worldview, and I think that's more of a left-wing thing where they're more have online relationships than people on the right. We've got, I think, more IRL type of stuff. So it tells them everything that they've been taught. They've been brainwashed through years at MSNBC and CNN. If you watch a couple of these shows, it's like pieces of a puzzle that all go together because it's all the same people who are watching all the same. I'm trying to think of anchors on CNN. Like they think who's that guy who just got fired? He got demoted to like a morning show because he said old chicks are no longer marketable or something weird like that. It's like, you're on TV, and you just like you said something about women. Like, you did not. How were you thinking? I forget the guy's name. Not Anderson Cooper. That's the other guy. So two guys at CNN, the two major guys, and they're both BLT. Huh? That's what a quinky dink. Yeah, he did this interview. It's effing bizarre because he just goes, oh yeah, just because I get paid $50 million, we just don't have the money. And everyone's looking at, but you're like, I got $500 million to your name. That's a little weird. Yeah, but the writers aren't worth more than like $50,000 an episode. It's patently absurd, but the studios have all the power. All they have to do is wait out the strike. and they can just hold off. And the strikers will be like, yeah, they're going to lose their homes, they're going to be homeless, and then they'll come crawling back to us. Instead of just paying them more, because if and the weird thing is they're not going on Twitter and telling the audience, the people who are supporting the strike, like, yeah, it's time to boycott Hollywood. Probably because the left-wing people would not be on board with that, because they have to have their shows. It is a parasocial relationship to them. Like, they might go virtue signal on Twitter that they're boycotting, but they're probably not really going to boycott. It's like they say they want to see these woke shows, and then the reverse is true. When the woke shows come out, it's like they just freaking absolutely bomb, and they just keep repeating the same thing over and over again. Someone else pointed out, like, I hope the strike lasts forever because it allows small independent studios to come up with stuff, and like that. Yeah, that's legitimately a good idea, but it's usually just going to be the same crowd of people who are so far left, like, oh, I came up with another woke show about this exact same woke. I feel like Nurkish could be doing this better, but he only does like a live stream once a week. The world really needs Nurkish and Cecil to take over YouTube and like do pop culture reviews. It's like it's just the right mix of humor and edge working together. Anyway, F all these people. Please, by all means, strike forever. It's just another. If AI, oh no, AI can write our shows for us. Yeah. Okay. What does that say? Oh, what do you mean? I mean, what does that say? If there's either no difference or there's, God forbid, an improvement if the AI writes the show. Oh, are you saying we should write better shows? Yeah, I mean, you could give it a shot. It could write something a little edgy, but it's like that's never effing gonna happen. Anyway, click the links, join the channel here, or subscribe. Sorry, thanks to everyone who's been sending me stuff through the mail. Thanks for the pocket knives. I found out that switchblades are in fact legal in California. I was a little scared about that, but that worked out all right. I very much appreciate the pocket knives. It's just like a biological need to have pocket knives. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you guys all next episode.